should we get into the first movie then?
Let's talk about our first movie.
Our first movie is,
Our first planned movie, I should say.
Our first planned movie, yes, is a film from 2018 called Blindspotting. It has, oh God, I forgot the actor's name. Hold on. He's an amazing actor. Let me just say, Hamilton star. What is his name? Daveed Diggs.
Oh, he's in Hamilton?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's where his main draws from. Blindspotting is a 2018 film directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada, starring Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. Who this is the second movie he's been featured in on the podcast.
What else has he done?
He was the waiter in
Las
Vegas.
Education.
Yes.
I recognize him now.
Which when I saw him in that, I was like, oh, it's him. But yes, because he's amazing in this movie.
It's a very different role.
A very different role. So yeah, it's a movie from 2018 that I feel has gone decently under the radar. I don't think a lot of people are talking about this movie.
I heard a lot about it when it came out, and then it just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that when it came out, everybody was talking about it, and it definitely had a lot of steam around. It was released in the summer, summer around it came out, but when you go into awards season, the conversation just completely dropped. And I didn't check it out until a year later. I saw it on sale at Target for like $5. And I'm like, oh, people like this movie. I'll check it out. And wow, I was wowed. And obviously the reason we chose this movie is considering the protests going on nationwide at the moment. I figured
present circumstances based around George Floyd's death. And such.
And I do feel this is an important movie regarding that.
Yes.
And yes. God, especially the ending. I mean, it's hard to it's not movies like this. I don't want to say are like, ahead of their time or predictive, because these are issues that persist, have been happening for a long time. But this movie in particular feels very relevant to the current political climate. So I thought,
I think saying it's relevant is better than saying it's predictive.
Yes.
Because this is an
it's not predictive,
issue.
It's reflective. And it is very relevant, unfortunately, to the current situation.
Yeah, which is why we picked it. So
yeah, it's just
not a coincidence.
Yes, it's just a movie about a guy who's on his last 3 days of probation after a robbery, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a robbery that he.
No.
What was it? Oh no, that's right, not a robbery.
Technically a spoiler. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. It's about a guy living in Oakland, California, which is a very big part of the movie. It's very much a place movie. Who's on his last 3 days of probation following an assault that took place the year before. And it's a little slice of life, high energy, race infused movie. And what did you think about it?
This is great, honestly. And I think what was really great about it is that it traffics in really heavy stuff, but it's an incredibly light movie. It is 95 minutes long. Great pacing. It just kind of flies by.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not all that much that happens. I mean,
it really isn't.
You're just hanging out with the Colin and Miles, the two characters for most of it.
And they're funny. And both, there's a great chemistry there.
And great chemistry. It gets surprisingly poignant at the end.
Oh, yes.
And it never, for a subject matter that is, the police brutality against Black people in this country, that's a heavy subject right there. And the fact that this film it's a comedy, it's fun to watch. It's got some very serious and very important moments in it, like I said.
Yeah, but it's never become solely about that.
Yeah, which is why I think that it's good. It's easy to recommend, especially in this time that, there are other films like 12 Years a Slave or Selma, or, that are heavy films, dramas about this subject matter and about the past. But this is a very modern and extremely modern, like it's a 21st century movie through and through.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's hip. Down with the kids.
It's got a very, I don't want to say it's not super similar, but it does feel like an early Spike Lee movie and just the energy that it has.
Yes, but better. I'm
Look,
sorry.
I
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
going to
Spike
say
Lee.
it. Well, because it's
I
very
will.
similar structurally to Do the Right Thing, in that
I
it's a
suppose, yeah.
movie about a few characters where nothing happens until everything happens. But what I appreciate most about this movie is that, yes, it is a movie, I think, at its core about police brutality, but it interweaves all these very, very poignant African American issues all at once. You have issues of identity, especially with the stuff with Colin and shit, I forget his name.
Miles?
Miles, Colin and Miles, yes. Their confrontation towards the end. You have the police brutality angle that, sort of bookends the film. And you also have a huge issue, which I feel like more movies should explore, is the gentrification issue, which, especially in California, is becoming,
Yeah. Well, I
it,
mean, we watched earlier a little while back. We talked about the last black man in San
yes,
Francisco in our
yes,
decade discussion or in our
yes,
year review, and that one. I mean, we're talking about gentrification. San Francisco is probably like number one city in the
yes.
country
Hmm.
that you can look to gentrification, and then Oakland. Oakland has this very kind of rough reputation,
Hmm.
and even there, it's starting to get more and more gentrified because of
Yeah.
Silicon Valley and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, this it's funny because when I initially saw The Last Black Man in San Francisco, I thought, okay, this is Blindspotting's quiet little brother, because they're both very similar as
Mm-hmm.
far as structure and general plot goes, but Blindspotting is a lot more in your face. It's a lot more high energy. It's a lot less reflective of. Last Black Man thinks, and Blindspotting talks.
Yeah, I would say that Last Black Man is a film about gentrification. Like
Yeah,
that's its
that's the yeah,
central
yeah,
subject matter. Blind Spotting is that's a background element, and it's
yes,
much more about the. I mean, it's in the title. It's about the perception of what do you do, particularly police officers. What do they
hmm,
do when they see a black person? What do they think?
oh yeah,
What is the
yeah,
instant like gut uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Assumption that people
hmm,
make when they see someone of another race. And the film kind of tears that down. I mean, that's I guess, the point of a lot of these movies of kind
yeah,
of exposing the hypocrisy or the idiocy of those kinds of barriers. And I
hmm,
think that's why the reason why I think this movie works as well as it does is because you have Colin, of course, who, is the main character, but you have Miles and because he has a journey too through the film,
hmm,
and his not necessarily maybe appropriation of that kind of culture of trying to fit
yeah,
in with his friend and with kind of the city of Oakland around him,
hmm,
and that was all very interesting and said probably just as much about everyone, all of us
yeah,
around black people who have to live with this kind of stuff as it does with
yeah.
them.
Yeah, that's why their final like confrontation is especially powerful. I just want to also point out that this is this guy's directorial debut, which I think is pretty damn impressive.
There's a lot of similarities between this and Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is also a
Directorial debut, yeah.
right, and they're both very unique. Very there's a directorial voice that comes through very
Yes.
strongly in both those films. Particularly, in this film, it's not taking it's not taking traditional routes in editing or in sound design or
Yes.
anything like that.
Mhm.
It's taking risks. It's having fun with the elements of cinema itself, and that's
Yeah.
also a lot why I appreciated it.
I especially love the intro of Blind Spotting, where it's just a bunch of stock footage of Oakland sort of juxtaposing each other.
I was
Um,
sold. I
yes.
have to say, like, watch the first 30 seconds of this film and you'll be sold on
Yeah.
it. It's opera.
It
I
tells you
think
everything.
The Marriage of Figaro, I think, was the
Yeah.
opera in particular, over split screen images of Oakland, and I was just like, this is great. I'm with the movie 100% from here.
but I think a huge part of why this works is because it tackles this heavy subject matter, but it's except in the rare like super climactic moments, it is consistently funny. Like one scene in particular is the scene where we sort of learn what put Colin in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine so many ways where that scene would have just been annoying, but that scene is genuinely hilarious just because there's so many different elements. One part that always makes me laugh is the fact that the guy telling the story has like 60 different like white actor names or white guy names. That always makes me laugh. Calls him Topher Grace.
it it's the other thing I found interesting, and it's not necessarily a spoiler, is that in the very beginning, the title of the film is on a theater marquee,
Yes.
which
Yes.
kind of goes into like the theatricality of that, and also the um, with Miles, how he's often rapping verse, just regular lines, and then at the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
end that Colin does it too, and
Yeah.
just kind of the film points out the theatricality of that there is this kind of artifice to the whole thing, and it's having
Mhm.
fun with it all, and it is very much a film. And I find it very interesting that the fact that it is like it's completely like fabricated, the whole thing,
Oh yeah.
that this kind of stuff, the climax itself never would happen in a million years, and yet it doesn't matter because
Oh yeah.
it's more about the principle of the thing. It's about what it's trying to express, give a voice to the kind of angst and the issues that have for so long been ignored.
Hmm. Well, there's a lot of surreal scenes in
Yes.
this. I mean, they're obviously dream sequences, but I do think they do a pretty good job, more creatively, I guess,
Well, good
expressing these
visuals, good
inner
audio,
fears.
putting
Oh
that
yeah.
together, and there's a
Uh,
dolly zoom at one point. So
oh yeah. Yes, I forgot about the dolly zoom. Should we go into spoilers because I think the climax is definitely worth talking about.
yeah, so this is a recommendation from both of us. I mean, it's
Hard
on
recommend.
Amazon
Yes.
Prime. No, it's
Hmm.
not. It's on Hulu. It's
It's on
on
HBO.
HBO, which is on
Yeah, it's
Hulu.
currently on HBO. Yeah.
I get them all confused. So yeah, spoilers.
Spoilers. This climax is amazing, and it's
I had to watch it
unique.
again before it really hit me, like the content of it, because it kind of
Yes.
streams by you. It's so quickly with what he's
Yeah.
saying.
Well, because you think that the climax is going to be Colin and Miles' fight, which is a climax to a different side of the story. But this, I don't even know if I want to call this the climax. It's sort of like the last hurrah because the movie ends pretty soon after.
Mhm. Well, they drive
But
away essentially.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that. Oh my god! So not only is it a very unique, it's unique overall, but it very much fits in with this sort of fantastical reality that the film sets up beforehand.
Hmm.
But it's also God, it that is an insane verse.
It
Like
really great writing on all the verses in the film. But
just,
this, I was listening
but
to it
yeah,
the
but
second time, and you start to you really follow along with what's being said,
yeah,
and like it's powerful stuff, but it just flows
it's
by you.
powerful stuff. But I feel like typically in movies where you have a character that raps, you can tell that the writer isn't necessarily into rap or anything or hip hop.
Yes,
They just kind of want to capture that
and that was not the
energy.
case here.
No. Which, the first few times that he raps a bit, you can see, oh, it's a little amateurish. It's very freestyle and, just whatever's on your mind. The final one is just so damn clever. It's so powerful. It sums up so much of what you've seen in the movie before. And I honestly, you gotta like, you gotta watch it with subtitles or you just gotta focus on nothing but the words because it's insane.
Yeah, it's so you said that earlier in the film they're doing some rapping and it's a bit more amateurish,
Yeah.
and it's almost like kind of selling rap itself, that rap is a very emotional medium of music, and that there's meaning to it, and that a lot of people disregard that,
Yeah.
and that the very nature of this kind of narrative is that in the beginning they're just kind of joking around and doing that, but when it gets really good, it's because you're emotionally invested in it. It sounds good, but it's also has meaning to it. It's kind of a little arc there in the very poetry of that.
One other thing is that this movie, like we said, it nothing really happens, but a lot happens.
Mhm.
But the turns that it takes, in particular, when the kid pulls the gun, it's a
Oof.
moment that sort of comes out of nowhere, but also it's very much set up. Where it's just crazy to me that we can have a just a quick little funny scene about, oh, he's in a small little t-shirt. Haha. 5 seconds later, it is life or death. Very, very tense. I think that unpredictability is, even because this is my second time seeing it. I saw it like a year or two ago, and I forgot about that part. And that's the part where I was like, oh shit, is there other stuff I didn't remember?
Hmm.
They do a great job at structuring conflict in this relatively conflictless story.
For me, I honestly the scene they have their fight after that. Well, they go to the party. Well, a lot happens.
Yes.
So Colin and Miles have their fight, and they both go home. And there's this great parallelism that happens after that of the scene. They both have scenes with their girlfriends,
Yeah.
and both of those, I thought that was like the emotional climax for me of the film the first time before I rewatched the climax before. But just those two conversations, particularly Miles's conversation with his girlfriend
Yeah.
and the use of the N word. And I have no idea what the
Oh
film
yeah.
is necessarily saying about that, but
Yeah.
it felt genuine. It felt like there was something
Mhm.
important there that I was not able to quite grasp on this first viewing.
Well, that's the thing is that I feel the same way about this again about Last Black Man, where they're posing a lot of questions with not a lot of answers. It's sort of like they're kind of venting in film
Hmm.
form. One thing that I still am not, I don't understand all that well, is that obviously that they set up this issue of gentrification to be obviously a negative connotation with the city. But part of me, I feel like they're also sort of accepting it. I think one thing that bugs me is they're accepting of the green juice, the thing that Colin tries at the beginning and then Miles tries later, which that green juice to me is so symbolic of the kind of gentrification that's going on, because it's a health craze type drink that
Well, there's a
is
lot of like
suddenly.
hipster healthy stuff
Yeah,
that goes on in the
yeah,
film, like the burger joint that sells
yeah,
vegan
yeah,
burger.
quick.
I found that
Yep.
so hilarious when they're like, you have to ask for a meat patty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But because the burger is a good example because it's something that's constantly denied. Because when it shows up later at the hipster party, he refuses it. He gets mad about it, but then he accepts the juice. So part of me is like, okay, is this them sort of rolling with the punches of gentrification, or I don't know. But it's not one of those things where, because again, I like how relatively unexplained the ending is, or unresolved, because we don't get to know what happens with Miles and his girlfriend. We don't necessarily get to know what happens with the fallout of the party, but it says everything that it needs to say, and it poses a lot of the answers to its own questions.
Yeah, the thing with gentrification, if this has little to do with the movie and it's more just about the political reality of that situation, is it's
Yeah,
so hard to stop
it
gentrification.
really is.
It's because it's a long term, peaceful, lawful process of just rich people are starting to move into an area, and they're doing so because they can afford it and they're making it nicer and the property value
Yeah.
goes up, and that's just the way the economy works. And it's so hard to do something about that. And at times I feel like it's like you either accept it or you don't, but at the same time there has to be some kind of solution, because it, particularly in a place like San Francisco, where and the whole Bay Area in general, it's just like prices are
Well,
going
I mean,
up and
God,
up and
God,
up, and it's where's it end?
even something like Tempe. Tempe is crazy gentrified. I don't know if you've been recently.
It still blows my mind that I was able to rent a house in Tempe
Yeah.
that close to the
'Cause,
university. Like that,
you know,
it's the prices are going up and up
oh
there.
yeah. Again, not to sound like a boomer, but I remember when I was in college, which, I only graduated in 2017. When I was in college, like my freshman year, there wasn't any of the super high luxury apartments like by the In-N-Out Burger or like where that Dutch Bros is on like Lemon or whatever.
Oh yeah.
There's so many luxury, like literally none of them were there only 4 or 5 years ago.
They are building like new ones every other month. Something is being
I
started.
I went there like 2 weeks ago, and there was three different buildings I just didn't recognize. That area by Mill Avenue, just it's a skyline now.
It Tempe is, as far as I'm aware, it's the biggest little city that ever lived.
Yeah.
Like it's a big city. It has a skyline. It has a downtown now,
Oh yeah.
essentially.
Which this is it's something that I feel very passionately about is gentrification. And not a lot of movies, more and more movies are talking about it. But whenever I see a movie like about that, I'm like, okay, let me go watch this. And yeah, this is one of the best as far as that goes.
And I mean,
But,
in a perfect world, I'm sure we're all like, let's have it gentrified and still be affordable for everyone.
yeah. Oh, because it's a double edged sword. Because yes, the property value goes up and the rent's crazy expensive, but also it cleans up a lot. Because there's some shitty parts of Tempe that I'm glad are gone. But yeah,
I mean, cleaning up the city, yes, at the price of forcing people out of their homes and people can't afford things anymore. Not so much.
not great. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot, and the thing. So to get back on topic on Blindspotting, one of the things I really enjoyed about the film was its visual storytelling,
Yes.
and we talked about that a little bit. But the thing that I noticed in particular was that in the very beginning, he starts the film by looking direct. The first time we see Colin, when he's in
the jail or
probation hearing
Yeah.
with the judge, he's looking directly into the camera, almost setting up the film as a direct address to the audience. And then even more importantly, the very end during the climax, the main shot of that is he's looking directly at the camera during that. It cuts to side angles here and there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think when he really gets going in that, you don't cut to the cop. It's just him looking, and it putting the audience in the place of the cop as like, you are being addressed with this monologue, this monologue in verse. Which
I'll call it a verse. Yeah.
It's both, but
yeah.
The point is that, well, I suppose the point is obvious that, addressing to us that we're the subject of that. Very, very nice. I appreciated that little touch of.
Yeah, a lot of visual storytelling. Overall, great camera work. I think that there are a few scenes that I think don't necessarily have the same energy or coordination. Specifically, I felt the climax between Miles and Colin just they just put a camera there and let him act. It's one of those things where it's very impressive for a directorial debut, but you can also at times tell it's a directorial debut because they do have the high energy, the constant camera movements and the simple but effective setup shots. But then there's a few scenes that just sort of, you can tell maybe it was later in the production where they sort of lost that initial spark when you get into the beginning of filming.
Well, yeah, it also feels like there's a lot of budget at some parts and little budget at some parts.
Part of that could be towards the budget. Yeah,
and no, it might not even be the budget. It might like that's what it feels like. The shots feel less polished, and as a result, because I like tuned into that, it's like, oh, this doesn't look as nice as before. Maybe it's because it's a directorial debut.
Yes,
like that was.
But again, as far as directorial debuts go, like it's an
A+ effort as far as directorial debut.
And one last thing I wanted to touch on was I love both of these actors. They're so good in this.
They both did
a great job. The guy who plays
job.
Miles. Again, I've seen two things from him and completely different characters.
Great job. And
Miles
the movie wouldn't work, I don't think.
No, it wouldn't. Miles in particular, I think, was just amazing. Daveed Diggs, also incredible. I love a huge part of this is the racial identity, where It's a huge part of the movie where this guy just sort of is associated with Miles, where all of the negative stereotypes about Colin are what Miles is preaching, and I think that it's a very interesting dynamic to look on the surface. And the more and more I think about it, I just find their relationship just fascinating, but never feels like constructed.
No, yeah,
There
no,
is
it,
a
it
great
feels real.
chemistry there. Yeah.
Feels you're with them.
Well, because typically when I see movies where you have, a white actor trying to portray a more like African American type culture, it comes off as just painful. But
Yeah, it can come off as, either the writer or the director or the actor doesn't know what they're
it will
doing,
can come
or they're
off as
just
borderline offensive.
yeah, yeah. For me, it usually just comes off as idiotic. You know,
Yeah. But with Miles, you could tell that it's very much he's a product of his environment, very much. And I don't think the actor ever lets it sink down to that level.
it's a good movie. I look forward to watching it again.
Same. Well, yeah, I'll definitely watch it again. So hard to recommend for both of us. Yeah. Currently on HBO streaming. If you have Hulu or HBO, give it a watch.
Nice and short, 95
Very
minutes.
relevant. Yeah. We might put together a little list of sort of relevant racial movies. I'm thinking about doing that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, we'll see.